A locked door at Windsor, a crimson folder, one signature from King Charles that supposedly handed Catherine authority over the future of the crown, while William, Camilla, and the most senior royals in Britain found out far too late to stop it.
It's terrible that after 50 years, it is behind closed doors.
That is the story flooding your feed right now, and millions of people have already watched some version of it. It sounds enormous. It sounds exactly like something a palace would bury. So we are going to do the one thing none of those videos ever do. We are going to go looking for the document itself. The viral claim. You have probably met this video too. It goes by different names depending on which version reaches you. Sometimes the document is called the Royal Continuity Decree. Sometimes it is the Order of Continuity. Sometimes Catherine is named guardian of the crown's future. Sometimes she is made a joint regent alongside William. In one heavily shared version, she is granted a title that does not exist in any constitutional document anywhere on Earth. The details shift, but the shape never does. A locked room, a single signature, a stunned family, a queen quietly stripped of access, and always, without exception, a document that no journalist has ever seen and no palace has ever published. That last part is the loose thread. Pull it, and the whole thing comes apart in your hands. But stay with me, because before we get to the paperwork, you need to see how these things are built, and it is stranger than you would guess. They almost never start with a leak. They start with a clip. Most of them open on real audio from September 2022, when Charles gave his first address as king. In it, he spoke about the Scottish titles he had carried for decades passing onward. Those titles, including Duke of Rothesay, passed to William because that is simply how they work. They attach to the heir apparent. Catherine became Princess of Wales and Duchess of Rothesay that same day, automatically by marriage. Nothing was granted to her personally. Nothing was signed behind a closed door. It was said out loud, on camera, to an audience of millions. Trim 4 seconds off that clip, lay ominous music underneath it, and you have manufactured a mystery out of a public announcement. And this is why nobody should feel foolish for pausing on it. The audio is authentic. Your ear hears a real king saying real words in a real voice, and everything that follows arrives wearing that credibility like a borrowed coat. Which brings us to the one question the whole story rests on, and cannot survive. The paper trail. Picture someone at a kitchen table, late, laptop open, deciding to check for themselves. They find the London Gazette search page. They type in the name of the decree. They wait. Nothing comes back. Not a redaction, not a sealed entry, not a note saying access restricted. Nothing at all, because there is nothing there to find. Here is why that matters more than it sounds. British royal instruments of genuine constitutional weight are not whispered about. They are published. Letters, patent, the actual legal mechanism a monarch uses to alter styles, titles, and delegated functions, are printed in the London Gazette, the official public record running since the 17th century. When the late Queen issued letters patent in 2012 so that all of William's children would be princes and princesses, it was gazetted. Anyone could read it. Anyone still can. A royal instrument that reshapes authority inside the monarchy while remaining invisible to the public record is not a secret. It is an impossibility. These documents draw their legal force from being on the record, which means secrecy is the one quality they structurally cannot have. Before we go further, if you value royal coverage that checks the paperwork instead of inventing it, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who are tired of being sold fiction as news. Now, there is a second problem hiding in plain sight, and it is sitting in the word itself. Britain does not run on decrees. A decree is what you get in an absolute monarchy, where the sovereign's word is the law by itself. The British crown stopped working that way in the 17th century, in the same stretch of history that produced a Lord Protector and then abandoned the experiment, and the settlement that followed was written down. The Bill of Rights of 1689 and the Act of Settlement of 1701 established that the sovereign reigns through Parliament rather than above it. So the moment a script tells you a decree was signed and instantly rewrote royal authority, it has already told you something about itself. That vocabulary was imported from a different kind of country, which leaves the largest claim of all still standing, and it is the one that would matter most if it were true. The succession question. Several versions suggest Catherine has been placed inside the line of succession or handed standing over it, or made a regent in waiting. She has not been. And here's the part that surprised me when I first checked it properly. No king could do it. The line of succession in the United Kingdom is set by statute. It runs through the Bill of Rights, the Act of Settlement, and most recently the Succession to the Crown Act of 2013, the one that ended male preference primogeniture, which came into force across all 16 realms in March 2015. Changing it requires an act of Parliament. And because the crown is shared with 15 other Commonwealth realms, long-standing convention reaching back to the Statute of Westminster in 1931 requires the agreement of every single one of them. That 2013 change took years of quiet coordination across 16 countries to move one principle. The idea that the same result could be reached by one man with one pen in one locked room at Windsor is not a secret being kept from you. It is a description of a constitution that does not exist. And if you want the case closed properly, look at 1936. When Edward VIII chose to leave the throne, his decision alone was not enough. Parliament had to pass His Majesty's Declaration of Abdication Act to remove him and his descendants from the succession. A reigning king could not sign himself out of the line with a pen. He needed legislation, so sit with what that means. If a monarch cannot write himself out of the succession, he cannot write his son's wife into authority over it. Catherine is not in the line of succession. She is married to the man who stands first in it, and those are entirely different things. But there is a quieter version of the story that does not need the succession at all, and it is the one that fools careful people. The regency question. If a monarch is temporarily unable to carry out duties, royal functions can be delegated to councillors of state. That role is defined by the Regency Act of 1937 and its later amendments, and the definition is fixed. The sovereign's spouse, plus the next 4 adults in the line of succession who are over the age of 21. Now picture a chamber in the Lords in 2022, not a locked room, a public one, with benches and a transcript and a clock on the wall. Members are on their feet debating whether 2 more people should be allowed to stand in for the king during illness or absence abroad. It moves to the Commons. It receives royal assent in December of that year. It becomes the Councillors of State Act, and it adds Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh. Look at what that took. 2 of the hardest working and most senior members of the family, already trusted with everything, and adding them still required a full act of Parliament, argued in both chambers, printed, and left permanently open for anyone to read. Catherine is not a councillor of state. She cannot be added by signature. She could only be added the way Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh were added in public on the parliamentary record, through a bill you could pull up tonight from bed. And yet, none of that is the part of these videos that should trouble you most. The constitutional errors are just wrong. What comes next is something else. The Camilla angle. Almost every version of this story needs a villain, and it casts Queen Camilla. Her household leaks papers. Her private secretary is caught holding a copied page. She is barred from a meeting she expected to attend. She is left standing at a sealed door while the family decides her future without her, and the camera lingers there because humiliation performs well. None of it is documented anywhere. There is no reported security breach, no named investigation, no palace statement, no journalist who broke it. Those scenes exist only inside the videos, which then cite one another and call the citation proof, which is not evidence. It is only mirrors agreeing with mirrors. Sit with the position that puts a real person in. A living woman in her 70s, watching a fiction about her own. Disgrace circulate to millions, accused of betraying her husband on the basis of nothing, with no version of events she can correct, because there were no events. She cannot answer a story that was never made of facts. Nobody could. And here's the detail that gives the whole thing away. These scripts contradict one another constantly. One says Catherine was elevated above Camilla. Another says the decree strips Camilla's wider family of privileges. Another says it came from a sealed envelope left behind by the late Queen. Another places it in the final days of Charles, which carries its own quiet cruelty, because the king is alive and working. They cannot all be true. They are not competing accounts of one event. They are one template, refilled. So, why did it land so hard on so many of us right now? Because the last few years handed the story real ground to stand on. Charles announced a cancer diagnosis in February 2024. Catherine announced her own diagnosis weeks later. stepped back from public life and confirmed she was in remission in January 2025. For a stretch of time, the two most visible figures in the monarchy were genuinely absent, and the palace, as institutions do, said very little. Silence is where rumor breeds, and the absence of news does not feel neutral when you care about the people involved. It feels like something withheld, which is the exact shape a rumor is built to fill. People wanted to know who was holding things together, and that gap was filled by anyone with a text generator and a stock image of a red folder, which leaves the question nobody making these videos ever gets around to. If none of it happened, what did? What is actually true? Strip away the theater and something more interesting is standing there. Catherine's position genuinely has grown, and it grew in daylight. She became Princess of Wales in September 2022. She has built long-term work on early childhood that carries her framing and her name. She returned to public duties after treatment on a visibly deliberate, reduced schedule she set herself. William has spoken openly about the kind of monarchy he intends to lead. Charles has continued state duties through illness rather than retreating from them. Picture someone reading the court circular for an ordinary Tuesday. It is the official daily log of royal engagements, published since the reign of George III, and it is almost aggressively dull. A visit, an audience, a meeting, no music, no folder, no locked door. If Catherine had been handed a formal new role, it would surface there, because recording exactly that is what the circular is for. The monarchy tells you nearly everything. It just tells you boringly, in gazettes and circulars and flat official statements. So, when the next one lands in your feed, 4 questions will settle it, and they take about 2 minutes. Where is the primary document? If it altered royal authority, it is in the London Gazette, and searching it is free. Which outlet reported it? Not another video. A newsroom with a masthead and a legal department, because a real constitutional shift is not a scoop anyone sits on quietly. Does the mechanism even exist? Secret decrees, hidden appendices, and instant regencies are not features of this system. And if a story needs an invented instrument to function, the story is the invention. And what does it want you to feel? Understanding or superiority? So, the next time that crimson folder comes scrolling past, you already know what is inside it. Nothing. If this cleared things up, subscribe, because we take apart every royal rumor that goes viral. And tell me in the comments, which royal story did you believe completely before you found out it was manufactured?